Welcome back, pet parent. Today's episode is actually a Pet Health Junkies episode. So I know not everybody who listens to the Pet Parenting Reset also listens to Pet Health Junkies, and that's okay. I absolutely love Pet Health Junkies, but it doesn't come out nearly as often, obviously, as the Pet Parenting Reset. And so I think it kind of gets sometimes a little forgotten about, which I'm not mad about. When we have an episode with a guest and it turns out to be like, oh, this is really, really amazing stuff. I don't want you to miss it. And so I am giving you that content today. It is an episode with Dr. Marlene Siegel. And actually, we are going to be doing a follow-up episode with her. So I will be posting that on this channel as well. Dr. Marlene Siegel has been on the Pet Parenting Reset before, but this particular episode that we did with her is all about detoxing, because we talk a lot about detoxing, but what does that actually mean and how do we actually do it? And I feel like sometimes that gets lost. I don't even like, are we talking about this? I don't know. I know we talk about detox. Are we talking about how to do it? But are we talking about how to do it the right way? But are we talking about what needs to be in place in the body to be able to detox? Because if we just try to detox and our detox pathways are not open, that can actually cause more problems than where we were at to begin with. So again, there's so many things we talk about in this podcast episode with Dr. Marlene Siegel. I don't want to belabor it because you're going to hear all about it. So here you go. This is the Pet Health Junkies episode that I just released with Dr. Marlene Siegel on detoxing for your pets. I know you're going to love this. Come back to me wherever you are. Instagram is my favorite place to be, and let me know what you think, and I will talk to you next week. Welcome back, Pet Health Junkies. Today we have such an interesting topic we're talking about. We're talking detox. But what's really cool, so obviously I have my co-host, Pam Roussel with Perfectly Holistic, and Janet Cesarini with Pupology, but we're not just talking about detox today. We're talking about detox with one of the most amazing integrative veterinarians that any of us know. Her name is Dr. Marlene Siegel. You may have heard her on the Pet Parenting Reset podcast we did a little while back. She's been practicing veterinary medicine for almost 4 decades, and the last 25 of those years have been dedicated to alternative modalities like ozone therapy, photodynamic therapy, assisted lymphatic therapy, hyperbaric oxygen, laser therapy, and more. She is definitely a visionary in the veterinary field, and we are so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Siegel.
Oh, I'm always so honored to be with you and your audience.
So we talk so much. I mean, first of all, we just talk a lot. Like the number of words that come out of our mouths every day is astonishing. But we talk when we are talking to pet parents, to other even pet professionals, we're always talking about detoxing. But one thing that I noticed is that we throw around the word detox a lot and we don't really explain what that means. We thought that would be a really amazing topic to have you come on and talk about.
Perfect. Yes. And we have a great starting point as well.
Yeah. So I know Janet, Pam and I, we met. Janet, you have a bunch of the questions laid out. I want to say, first of all, like if people are interested in your history, your backstory, we covered all of that on the Pet Parenting Reset. You can go back to that. We don't need to rehash all of that. But I would like to just give you the opportunity to just, if you want to throw in like, why should people be listening to you right now?
Oh, that's a big question. I think we're in a world of too much information where on the internet, you have everybody and their brother and sister are giving their opinions. And so there's a lot of information, but it may not all be accurate or it may not all be applicable. So I think the conversation around really how to use discernment and how to use critical thinking skills so that when you're posed with a question and somebody gives you an answer, to be able to ponder that answer and figure out, is it really, does it make sense? If things don't make sense, then It just doesn't make sense. And one of the things I model after is actually how nature does things. So if there's ever a
Mm.
question, which way should we do it, to the left? Should we do it to the right? I really look at nature and I say, what are the models that nature uses to show sustainability? And then that's the one I'm going to model after, because man has a tendency to kind of mess things up. It sounds good, but especially when it comes to pets, we think about the things that we do for ourselves, but dogs are
Mhm.
not small people and cats are not small dogs. So everything that we do for ourselves isn't actually linear and applied to our pets. So that's would be my first comment.
I love
So
it.
good
Yeah, go
point.
ahead, Janet. I was gonna say I can overwhelm the conversation, so I wanna give you guys the opportunity.
I can do that too, but um, I try to be on my best behavior. So, Dr. Siegel, detoxification is near and dear to all of our hearts and to our listeners, and especially, you brought up dogs are not small humans and cats are not small dogs. Yet we all live in the same world and we have the same issues and biological responses most of the time to environmental toxins, food, and then, water. But the thing that gets me the most probably emotional or upset or really affects me is the daily discussion about vaccinations and flea, tick, and heartworm prevention. And that was the last conversation that I had on the floor before coming back to the office. And the customer in this example, she is all about, she feeds raw. She does not over vaccinate, according to what she tells me. She does diatomaceous earth and natural flea and tick and just parasite prevention. But she's having a problem with flea infestation, which we believe is coming from her indoor outdoor cat. So she can't get a control of it. And today she's like at the end of her rope and she's like, which medication? This was her question to me. I want to talk to you, Janet. Which medication from my vet can I give to my dog and my cat and it still be safe? And what was my answer? I said none. And
Well,
how do you answer that? I mean,
yeah,
because I think there is also a time for intervention that's maybe
yeah.
more serious. But then going back to the detoxification, I said, okay, if you end up going down that road, then we have to detox the system to, because I understand the problem may be insurmountable and you're at the end of your rope. You can't do these things. They're not working or whatever. And that happens. That's a very regular conversation in the store. And so detoxing is on the top of the list. Below that is cancer to let you know what's coming up. But what do you say in that kind of
Yeah. So
situation?
it comes up a lot for me as well. And I think
Mhm.
we have to take a step back and using critical thinking skills and look at each individual problem. So when we're talking about fleas and ticks, not only do they cause misery to these poor animals, if you've ever seen an animal that has flea allergic dermatitis,
Yes.
they're
Mhm.
full of scabs, they're miserable, they're itching all the time. You can just imagine what their life must be like, let alone the pet parent who has to listen to them chewing and scratching and being miserable and bleeding sores. And then ticks, they carry a lot of diseases.
Right.
So I think we have to step back from the little picture and look at the big picture. Number one, what are the things that we have control over that we can implement? And obviously, food is the first one.
Mhm.
And if you're going to have a big dog, just know it's going to be more expensive to feed them. It is what it is. And then water, and then environment, and the things that touch the skin, what you're breathing, all of that are things that we can easily control. When it comes to flea and tick prevention, if this lady is doing what she's saying she's doing, she's really feeding a balanced organic or grass fed, grass finished raw diet. Because now there's so many raw companies out there
Yeah.
that we have to even stop and have that conversation. Is it a raw diet that's loaded with a bunch of vegetables? It doesn't have grass fed, grass finished in it.
Mhm.
So they're all raw diets are not equal. Some of them are balanced, some of them aren't, some of them have synthetic vitamins put in there. I mean, there's just so many things that we have to really step back and take a look at what does that really mean that she's feeding raw. So let's assume she's feeding a well-balanced grass-fed, grass-finished raw diet with the right essential vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, and aminos. And let's assume she's giving a good filtered, structured water and
Mhm.
that she has the rest of her environment. The body's organs of detoxification are actually designed to be able to handle a level of toxicity. Where the problem comes is when you overwhelm those organs of elimination with so much toxicity that they can't keep up. And I'm
Mhm.
finding because we're testing for mycotoxins and we're testing for microplastics and we test for glyphosate and we test for heavy metals. That becomes a big eye opener when we're talking about detoxification because that little bit of insecticide that goes on once a month to prevent the tick-borne diseases and the flea allergy dermatitis is nothing compared to mycotoxins and plastics.
Okay.
So it's not one thing, it's the
Mm.
entire lifestyle that we're looking at and trying to pick with some discernment, which hill are you going to die on?
Right.
Because you don't have to have every battle. So what
Uh-huh.
I do is I pick the safer
Mhm.
of the flea and tick products. And
Yes.
that would also be dependent on the lifestyle of that animal. Are they swimming a lot? Are they up north? Are they in the south? What's the lifestyle so that we can pick the safer of the products? I don't use any of the orals. Any of the chewables, I don't touch any of those because when you look at the ingredients, they are really egregious in what they put into those things to make
Mhm.
them palatable.
Yeah.
But there are safer of the flea and tick products that will still do the job of protecting the animal. And then what you said was continue doing the daily detox and really just having some critical thinking skills, looking at the rest of the lifestyle. Because I think it's a misrepresentation for a pet parent to come in that is still over vaccinating, that is feeding processed foods, that is giving their animal tap water, but they don't want to use a flea and tick medication.
Mhm.
Like, is it because you don't want to spend the money? But what's the real issue? Because you're not making an effort to clean up the rest of that lifestyle. So that's how I address it. I pick the safer of the products to keep that animal as healthy and safe as I can in their environment.
So 2
Mhm.
questions. One's a clarifying question. So are you then saying that an animal that is fed a super clean, raw diet, that is given filtered, structured water, um, that is not receiving, common prescription meds and other things of that nature, just the healthier the diet, the healthier the pet, therefore it has an impact on fleas and ticks and being attractive? Would you say that that does have an impact? Is the cleaner the body, the gut biome, does that
Yeah,
have an impact on being attracted to fleas and ticks?
I'm not, well,
Cleaner the blood?
the word attracted is the one that's throwing me off because the fleas and ticks are going to take their opportunity. Hell, they'll eat on me if I was the only food source that they had.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's cleaner. What I'm saying is that an animal that has a healthier lifestyle, that their organs of elimination are functioning better, they
Mhm.
have a level of tolerance. So
Okay.
we can be exposed to a level of toxicity and our body is going to have a healthy response to cleaning that up. So
Okay.
here's how I look at it. Pretend you have a glass. When the glass is fully empty, then you have all of that reserve, all of that space in that cup is
Mhm.
your reserve for being able to tolerate exposures. When that glass is full and the next drop that goes in makes it spill over, that's your cancer patient. That's your end stage
Mhm.
degeneration. That animal has no more space or tolerance or ability to detoxify because they're already at their max. They're full. So
Right.
maybe that's a better way to look at it. When we are evaluating what is the tolerance of this animal, evaluating the lifestyle, and then testing for mycotoxins and microplastics and heavy metals and glyphosate, because you can't look at them and see how much they're exposed to. You
Right.
have to test. And until you test, you really don't know what you have. We test on the average, gosh, we probably do 10 cases a week that we're doing full workups on. And of the ones that we test for mycotoxins, we see a minimum of 3 out of 5 mycotoxins. And in most cases, they have all five and they're at very high levels.
So that number one, how can a pet parent get access to said tests? And then number two, then about if this pet parent goes into her vet, and I heard you say loud and clear, no orals, and I'm so happy to hear you say that. So they have the topical option. Let's say that they pick one, I don't know, Simparica. Okay.
That's a no on my list, by the way.
I honestly suggested that she do before running to the vet because I ran through all the natural options that I know of that I've applied over the last 10 years that I do with my own dogs and that she has said that she's doing or has tried. And I think, side note, the consistency of the application of natural products is more time consuming. It is much more cumbersome. It's not a one and done for another 30 days, 90 days, and even now annually, with these new shots, ridiculous things. But I think that that is a huge factor. Um, I also think a lot of times people will treat the pet and not the yard and their environment.
Mhm.
Um, but if we go in and we do Simparica, then, and this is an older dog, what would you suggest for supporting the organs that as they're exposed to the medicines that are in those products? And my original question, how do pet parents have access to these tests? Because I would be willing to bet. I mean, I've never heard any of my veterinarians over the course of 40 years say anything about said tests.
Yeah. So we can do telemedicine now. Yay.
Hey,
So that's what I do is I send the pet parent. Now I have a very specific process when pet parents are going to work with me, especially during telemedicine. And one, I require that they take the Empowered Pet Parent course, which is our online program. It's 3 hours, but it sets the stage for all the information that they're going to need to know about proper testing, about diet, digestion, gut health, microbiome, detoxification of all 6 organs of elimination, the mitochondria, and even I talk about trapped emotions. So it gives them all of that foundational information. And then they have the ability to self reflect and go, oh, I'm not doing this. I am doing that. I need to do these 3 things, but I'm good on that. So now they set themselves up for success. Then when they come to talk to me, they already know what their weak points are, what they need to do differently. And then I just help them with implementation. Now, I will send them once we've established that client patient coaching or relationship. I'll send them the test kit. Of course, we let them know what all the different tests are. We pick the ones that are going to be most important for their lifestyle and their age and all that. And then it's very easy. Some of it's done on hair, some is on urine, and some is on blood. But they can get a technician or their vet to draw the blood, put it into the little test wells. We have directions on how to do that. And then it's a self-paid container that goes to the lab, and then the results come to me. And then I do the interpretation of the results, and then we design a program to help them with that detoxification based on actual data.
excellent. And what is the name of the course?
It's called the Empowered Pet Parent course, and it's on my website, drmarlenesiegel.com. You can get to it that way. You can also get to it through transformingvetmedicine.com or evolovestore.com. So we have lots of different ways for people to find it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's the most inexpensive way to go back and you repeat it multiple times because once you pay for the course, you own it. And what's valuable is we know that we retain 10% of the information that we learn. Then 6 months
Yeah.
later, it's probably less than that. And So we have to go back and review, because as you watch it for the first time, there's going to be a certain level of information that you go, wow, it really pops out to you and you resonate with it. And then you get that going. And then you go back and watch maybe a few months later. Now you've made some lifestyle changes, and now you go back and you watch the next level. And it just helps you in the entire life of that pet to understand without having to deal with all the shiny objects and the marketing. We really teach the body's biology to these pet parents so they understand their dog, they understand their cat. How are they different than a human? And now they can actually make educated decisions on how to best create a healthy lifestyle. Because we live in a society where it's really a broke care society. We wait for things to
Mhm.
break and then we do symptom management.
Yes.
This is proactive. Now, of course, a lot of people taking the course already have a challenge with their pet. And now we're trying to change that lifestyle and get them out of the danger zone. But for people that are starting out with their puppies and kittens, wouldn't it be amazing if they learned this information and they didn't fall into the same traps that most of us did? I mean, there's not a pet parent out there that I've ever met that intentionally wants to harm their pets.
Right.
I have
Mm.
one guy that's kinda close, but he's not doing it intentionally, he's just ignorant. He's my Jason one-star review. Every dog that he has dies of cancer, but he doesn't wanna make any changes,
Oh,
so, that's not like it's not like he's excited to kill his dog, it's just that he hasn't gotten to the point yet where he's willing to make a lifestyle change to do something different.
uh,
But most people really want to do the best thing for their pets. And once they understand it and know it, you can never take away that knowledge. And they're forever moving forward, making better decisions.
yeah.
Mhm.
You bring up a very, very good point about basically it's when you know better, you
You do
should,
better.
right?
You know better, you do better. Yeah.
And I have a 1-year-old mini Australian Shepherd that I received as a gift last October after I lost my Hanky, my Australian Shepherd, to cancer. And he was 12 and a half when he passed. And then I was gifted Hope. And I looked at her and I said, okay, you know, your predecessor, Hank, taught mommy a lot. And I'm going to apply everything I learned in helping Hank live with metastatic cancer, and he was given 2 months to live, and I was able to incorporate many holistic veterinarians with hyperbaric oxygen therapy, vitamin C, intravenous therapy, Chinese herbs, acupuncture. And obviously, he was already on a good diet, but he had not been half of his life. He
Mhm.
also had received vaccines and flea tick and heartworm, in his early developmental years. And so I was playing catch up once I started learning about, healthy ways to raise pets. I did not Hope came with 2 vaccines, and I did not vaccinate her. And people maybe think that that was plain Russian roulette, but I trusted the information that I had to expose her. Like, we don't treat our yard with pesticides, and so she's out in the yard eating the dirt, eating bark off of a tree, rolling in the grass, eating the grass, twigs, that she was exposed to that. I did not, as I said, vaccinate her. I put her immediately on colostrum and gave her goat milk, fermented beets, fermented mushrooms. I put her immediately from a kibble diet to a raw diet. And then she turned a year, 2 months ago. I had her titer tested, and she still had immunity for rabies, lepto, distemper parvo. Is that all of the main four?
Mhm.
She showed immunity for all of that. I never gave her a rabies shot. So that had to
Mm.
have come from the mother,
Mm.
correct?
That's going to be a little dangerous territory, because in the United States, there is no acknowledged titers for rabies.
Okay.
And so,
It's on the lab report.
yeah, but there's the government, no state recognizes rabies in the US.
Uh-huh.
But
That's it.
but when you're shipping animals overseas, the countries will require a titer for rabies before they come into the country. So I just
Interesting.
didn't want pet owners to be misled in your comment that you can do a blood test, and if the rabies titer is adequate, that they don't have to get a rabies shot because
We
it is,
can take that part out.
yeah, that's
Yeah, we
definitely
can
an
cut that
area
out.
that you just, but you know what? You talked about a lot of the different things that you're doing, but I think they're worthy of explaining what was behind, what was the benefit of the things that you're doing. As an example, being outside, rolling in the dirt, chewing on trees and stuff like that. You know, now you're talking about nourishing the microbiome and expanding the microbiome of that animal so that people understand that the diversity of the microbiome has everything to do with the exposure that we give it. And the better our exposure, the healthier the microbiome is going to be.
Mm, good nugget.
Mhm.
Yep. So thank you. I hope the gentleman will make some changes. It makes such a big difference. But she's been a very healthy dog. We've had no issues, knock on wood. And I love the fact that she got a healthier start in life.
Yeah.
So, but bringing this, go ahead.
And with all of that said, we're all still exposed to glyphosate, heavy metals, mycotoxins, and microplastics.
Yes.
So you can't look at an individual and go, oh, they're healthy.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can't do that because you don't know what's happening under the hood.
Mm-hmm.
So when we want to really talk about are they really healthy, we really need to get some diagnostics so that we can actually see what are their toxic levels. Disease happens when two things occur. Number one, deficiencies of essential nutrients. And
Mm-hmm.
again, you can't look at them and see that they are deficient. Now, I live in a food forest. It's a self created food forest. I've got food 360 degrees around my house. My forest is almost 15 years old.
Wow.
And yet I don't know my mustard greens. They look beautiful, but I couldn't tell you the nutrient quality of them. So, what is the selenium in my soil? What is the manganese in my soil? I don't know. And so, the essential nutrients are those nutrients your body cannot manufacture in sufficient quantities on its own. You have to get them in your diet. Since most of the food that is grown in the US is not grown in regenerative farming conditions, then I think it's safe to say that most of the food that we're eating is nutrient deficient.
Mm-hmm.
Glyphosate rains on us every time it rains. It blocks the shikimate pathway in microorganisms that are the ones producing the three amino acids that we need in order to produce dopamine, serotonin. So, how do we know if we are actually getting those? Because the glyphosate's raining on us and it rains on my garden too. So, I know there's an exposure level there. I just don't know how high. And then on the toxicity side, the same. The average person, according to the lab that's doing the testing for microplastics, the average human has 21 particles of plastic. Now, zero is normal because we never had plastic before the 1800s. But more and more plastic is being introduced into our diet, into the oceans, because now the fish are eating the plastics that we're dumping into the oceans. And so when we eat fish, we're getting lots of plastics. And so there's just so much exposure, aerosolized exposure from carpets and from synthetic clothing, and the list goes on and on. So how if the average person is 21, we're seeing numbers in pets that are in the high 30s and high 40s. So
Wow.
far, my highest pet was 49 particles of plastic.
Wow.
Yeah. You go to the grocery store and look at how food is handled. It's 95% plastic. So I don't think this is a conversation of I have plastic. I think the conversation is how much do I have and how much is it affecting the biology of that individual? Because it's a hormone disruptor. It can block vessels if it's big enough in size. It is causing all kinds of havoc in our metabolism, but you don't see it. Same thing with mycotoxins. The symptoms are almost everything you can imagine, from ain't doing good to poor coat to relapsing to allergies. It's all over the board. There's not one specific thing. So we just have to start testing and seeing what we're really exposed to. And by doing the testing, it helps you to go back and figure out where was the exposure. And then the course, the most important part is how can we minimize exposure? So in
Mhm.
my house, we have no carpet. We've gotten rid of all plastic storage containers. You can't get me to go near a plastic water bottle. I use stashers, which are silicone for storing our food, or glass or stainless steel. It's a start. I'm not saying it's perfect, but at least it's a start for helping to clean up the environment. And then I use commercial air purifiers that are made for home use. They go down to 1 micron to clean the air. And then I use water filtration that also goes down to 1 micron. The system I use also produces molecular hydrogen. So now you get your antioxidant along with clean, filtered, structured water.
Nice.
So these are the things that we have control over, though.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to help people to realize is that yes, we are living in a very toxic soup, but there are things that we can do to mitigate, and things that we can do to support our health. And
Mm.
then also EMF, I want to make sure I mention that because there's so much we can do on EMF. We actually have a device now that goes on your electrical line from your power box that comes into the house, and it literally will remove all of that dirty electricity. And we have studies that show that. So doing
Mm.
things like that, doing things in the home that helps to restructure or change the way light interacts with us, so that the EMF is still there, but we're supporting the body so that we're interacting with these light photons in a way that supports our health and helps us to be more resilient. Of course, it helps our pets. So these are the things that we can control once we learn how to
Mhm.
do that. And then it's the daily detoxing, when to take binders, when to do liver flushes, when to do coffee enemas, how to sweat. People don't sweat anymore. They don't go outside and sweat. And that is so important. We're not
Mhm.
exposed to light. Like, we're talking about detoxification, but the basics. Go outside. Be
Mhm.
outside in the morning, the middle of the day, the late afternoon, because all those different wavelengths are affecting our biology. We literally make ATP through the Krebs cycle using the infrared light. So if you're not
Mm.
getting exposed to that, you're going to have a problem.
Mhm.
Well, if you live in an area, it's wintertime, you don't have a lot of light, well, then use a full spectrum sauna. So there's solutions. It's just understanding what do we need to do to have a healthy lifestyle, and then
Mm.
how do we make that happen. Exercise, oh my gosh, most of these animals are not getting any exercise, and walking around the block is not exercise enough. We're
Mm.
talking about the kind of exercise that moves your lymph. Oh, you know what we should do? Let's just name the 6 organs of elimination. How about that?
Mhm. That's a good one.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
because then people can understand what we're talking about. So we
Yeah.
have kidney,
Mhm.
colon, poop
Mhm.
shoot, lungs, liver, skin, and then lymphatic. But I combine lymphatic with fascia because the lymphatic runs through the fascia, and the fascia is as important as the lymph for helping structure and detoxing and communication. Let's talk about, in my opinion, the lymph and the liver are the two most important organs of elimination because they do the most work. So your
Mhm.
lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. It requires high intensity movement in order to work. Well, our pets used to live outside, and they had to run down their food and wrestle with it and kill it and then eat it. That's a lot of high intensity exercise because they were out running and it was fast spurt, all that stuff. But they rarely get exercise like that unless they're an athletic dog and you're doing agility or some other exercise with them. But the
Mhm.
average pet isn't getting that exercise, as the average human isn't. So this doesn't require any tools or equipment. It requires moving lifestyle. So we just covered go out in the sun, and we covered
Mhm.
movement. We've talked about clean, filtered, structured water. That could be a whole topic in and of itself, but I've got stuff on my website if people want to compare the systems that I recommend. And then for the skin, we're talking about sweating. We mentioned that already. And I work in my garden. So when I go outside, I can be drenching. But I will tell you, about 15 years ago, I didn't sweat. I had to teach my body how to detox and how to sweat. When I first started using my infrared saunas, I wasn't sweating. It would take 20 minutes
Mhm.
before I broke a sweat. Now I can be
Mm.
in there for 5 minutes and start to sweat, but that was not a good sign. You need to be able to sweat and release toxins. And then, of course, elimination. I don't remember the statistic anymore, but for humans, the number of humans that are constipated, oh my gosh. Or they think having one bowel movement a day, but they eat 3 to 4 times a day is okay. That's not okay.
Mm.
And our animals, we see similar problems with obstipation and constipation in these animals. Again, it all has to do
Mhm.
with proper elimination, proper digestion, the microbiome. So that
Mm.
helps us to have a better overview of how we are able to start to detox. And then we can get into products that we can use. So I have a fascia decompression course that pet parents can take, and all it requires is your love, your attention, and your hands. And then we teach you how to use your hands and how to manipulate the skin and the joints so that you're actually improving the fascia circulation. I'm also doing a lymphatic course for pet parents. We have a special stone and it has frequencies in it. And then we're teaching them how to open up the areas of drainage and then how to be able to do the lymphatic drainage. Because not everybody has the option to go out and do high intensity exercise. Maybe the animal has arthritis or other conditions that don't allow that, or the pet parent can't do that with the pet. So for whatever
Mhm.
reason, we still have to get that lymphatic moving. And so this would be one of the tools that we use. Rebounders, if somebody has a trampoline, just gentle.
Mhm.
Do not bounce them 5 feet in the air. This is gentle. I can see the picture right now, right? But you told me, and then they bounced off and broke their leg. No, this is just very gentle bouncing so that we're getting stimulation. Vibration plates is another thing that we use.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
vibration plates are amazing for people and pets because now you're not having to go outside and do things that your joints aren't happy with, but yet you're getting the vibration that's still contracting muscles and getting your lymphatics moving.
Mm. So those are the 6 avenues. Are you talking, Pam? Am I hearing myself? Okay. Those are the 6 avenues. So one of the questions was about how to detox, including how do you prepare the body to detox, and I think
We kind of covered that. It's about
Mhm.
lifestyle.
That's true.
So you can pick each one of those. Kidneys, drinking clean, structured, filtered water,
Yeah.
having herbs, eating for humans, I'm a big fan of eating a lot of vegetables. But animals, dogs and cats are carnivores. Cats are obligate carnivores. Dogs are scavenger carnivores. And they truly were not designed in nature to eat a lot of vegetables.
Right.
They were
Mhm.
designed to eat the intestinal tract of the herbivore that they killed. And they
Mhm.
got a DIY, it's done for you system where it's nice, all fermented for them. And then they get to eat that. But you don't see carnivores going out and eating in cornfields and vegetable patches.
Yep. Mm-mm.
And again, remember I started the conversation, I said I always look at nature and I see what nature models. Well, if nature intended for carnivores to eat a lot of vegetables, they would have put amylase in the saliva because you
Mhm.
need that amylase to start breaking down the carbohydrates. And
Mhm.
they would have had to chew their food thoroughly to mix it with the saliva to begin the digestion. They don't
Yes.
do
Mhm.
that. They tear, gulp, and swallow. And it makes
Mhm.
sense when you think about it because in the wild, when they have to hunt something down, they got really hungry, gave them the motivation to go out there and hunt, kill, eat. They attracted a lot of other attention when they made all that commotion. So other scavengers are coming around going, whoa, maybe a free meal around here. And when you're eating, you're a little distracted. You don't really hear who's coming up behind you. So nature said, you don't have to chew your food thoroughly. We're not going to put amylase in your saliva. You're going to tear, gulp, and swallow, and then go back after you stuffed yourself with meat. You're going to go back and digest in safety.
Yeah.
Now, they haven't evolved over that many years to make that a big change. And they still don't have amylase in their saliva and they still don't chew their food thoroughly.
Yeah.
So
Right.
these are where critical thinking to me becomes very important because
Mhm.
it sounds good when you read the dog can or the bag and it has kale and broccoli and it has blueberries and we all know all these nutrients that are supposed to be in them. A, are they organic? B, has anybody tested them to find out are those nutrients really in there? I don't know.
Right.
Critical thinking, now we have to come back and say, okay, we live in a very, very toxic world. We're talking about the two major things that are causing disease, deficiency and toxicity. Well, deficiency is pretty easy to make up once you've identified what you're deficient in and you're taking the right essential nutrients. Boom. Now you're taken care of.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I just want to maybe clarify for anybody listening, because when I'm listening to you talk about these detox pathways and addressing each detox pathway, like the way you've talked about it with foods and with clean, structured, filtered water, like all of the things you're talking about, these are things that we need to do foundationally that people, because a lot of people, like we have just been conditioned by the pharmaceutical industries for so long that it's like, okay, what people were thinking, "Okay, what pill can I take?" And now they're just transferring that to the holistic
Yeah,
side and saying, "What
Mhm.
supplement can I take?" But if we're not preparing the body and if all of these detox pathways aren't working properly and
Happy.
flushing things out, then those supplements could actually do more harm than good sometimes.
absolutely. In fact, when we have cancer patients, we do not start cancer therapy. We don't start killing anything off in that body until we know that the elimination pathways are working because we will make
Mhm.
them sicker. It'd be like saying, I'm going to start cleaning my house, but my toilets don't work. So every time you flush, it overflows instead of it going down. Right. I know it's a gross thing to think about, but that's what happens in the body, right? It can't get
Mhm.
rid of the things that we're starting to kill off. And so it
Yeah.
becomes toxic, or you start reabsorbing it because you aren't peeing it out, you're not pooping it out. So you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. We have to prepare the body, we have to create a lifestyle. But the supplements I was talking about are the essential supplements, not,
Mm.
oh, do I want to take a mushroom and ashwagandha? And no, those are all the extras. The
Mhm.
essential supplements are the ones the body has to have in order to function properly, like the fatty acids that make up the cell membrane. When you're deficient in that, your cell membranes aren't healthy.
Right.
So
Mm.
those have to be in the diet.
Mhm.
Then what you're talking about is transferring a pill for the ill to an acupuncture needle or an herb or, Chinese herb or whatever. That's what I agree with you is not the right way to do, because you're not addressing the root cause of the problem. You're not actually helping the body to do its functional jobs, and you're just adding another symptom suppression.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, I know there are a lot of, because the supplement industry is way out of control on both the human
Yeah,
and animal side.
multi-trillion dollar industry, and it's not regulated.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I am also curious, and I know, imagine, Janet, there's more questions on your notepad over there, and I would love to give Pam a chance to talk too. But while we're on this topic of all of the lifestyle changes that need to happen for the body to be able to properly detox, I'm curious how you fit, or if you fit, fasting into that.
Absolutely. Let's model after in the wild. That animal in the wild did not kill, it wasn't successful every time it went out to hunt. So
Mhm.
there would have been natural periods of time where they missed a meal. Just the fact that they ate at dawn and dusk is an automatic 12-hour fast or close to it. And then overnight, another 12 or
Mhm.
14. By the time the sun went down until the sun came up again, they weren't hunting. So these are two natural patterns of fasting that they automatically did. But in our households today with pets, people fill the bowl with kibble and then they leave that, and the animal has terrible digestion. And they walk
Mhm.
over, they take a couple bites, they leave again. And that is obviously a sign of abnormality, but it's also an improper way to feed them. So we're feeding them out of love and kindness, but they're not getting that natural fast that they would have just simply by eating twice a day. And then I'm
Mhm.
a fan, if the animal is healthy and there's no other mitigating problems, of taking away one meal for the dog just one day a week. And I like to vary it around. So it may be Monday morning, it may be Thursday night. I always suggest, if you're leaving the house, make that the fast so that they're not coming over annoying you. And then you feel bad and we feed them out of love, right? We eat out of stress. So it is important that we don't overfeed them. We feed them a species appropriate diet, which is
Mhm.
meat, fat, bone, and organ meat for your macronutrients,
Mhm.
and then make sure that they're getting their essential vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, and vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, and aminos, and then some form of digestive help, some fermented foods to help with the gut microbiome. Now we start talking about a healthier
Mhm.
lifestyle. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Did that answer the question?
Mhm.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Did you have anything you wanted to interject, Pam? You haven't had a chance to talk yet.
No, I'm enjoying the conversation, but I would ask Dr. Siegel, do you have any specific recommendations for cat parents? Because cat parents tend to fall into that all day buffet, if like your general population who feeds the kibble, right? So that's one of the first things I tell people is you got to take up the all day buffet. But let's say they're on a raw diet and we don't want to fast cats for days or or whatever. They're not dogs like you said, right?
Right.
So
They
are there any specifics that you want to pinpoint for cats?
Yes, and I was about to say it before you asked that question. I was about to finish the whole fasting piece. That was all
Mhm.
applied to dogs. With
Mhm.
cats, we know that they can get fatty liver disease, hepatic lipidosis, and so we don't fast cats. But their natural fast would have been dusk and dawn.
Yeah.
Now, if you take away occasionally one meal and you feed them once a day, if they're a healthy cat, they're not going to have a problem with that. But you don't
Mhm.
want to do what you just said, Pam. You don't want them to go for 2 and 3 days because then they will get fatty liver disease. But in the
Mhm.
wild, they didn't eat every single 12 hours. So there were
Right.
times when they were more adapted to some form of a fast. But definitely
Mhm.
do not change the diet on a cat and look and go, oh, when they're hungry enough, they'll eat. No, they will starve themselves into fatty liver disease. So that would be one thing. I think the other thing with cats is that they really need more moisture in their food. So a raw diet's already going to have 70% more moisture in it. So that's going to help. And I would still add some moisture on top of that, adding bone
Mhm.
broth or whatever they'll tolerate. And I wanted to make one more point on the cat is that they are obligate carnivores. So
Uh-huh.
anytime we start introducing carbohydrates to a cat's diet, we are creating harm and inflammation. So these are really strong principles for cats that in my world, I find non-negotiable, but yet
Mhm.
we have an industry that's built around a
Yeah.
money machine and we are the ones killing our cats.
Yep.
And I'm glad you said that. Let's clarify for our listeners that we're not talking about taking away the fiber source, like small, tiny amounts of fiber to feed the microbiome. You're talking about the massive amounts of grains and even grain
Yes,
free foods that are processed, right? That are just carbo loaded, not protein focused.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll find that when these animals are eating a species appropriate diet, the amount of waste that they have, the amount of poop that they actually create is so
Mhm.
minimal. But
Yeah.
initially going from processed foods to a raw diet, you may find that the animals' GI tract they haven't figured it out yet. So sometimes they get a little constipated or obstipated, and we have to intervene just enough until they start getting regulated, but they will get
Mhm.
regulated.
Yeah.
And to clarify, you do support the idea of cats having fiber in their diet. Some sort of a fiber source, a prebiotic type of fiber source, not loads of tiny sources, because I know you really are a proponent of healthy microbiome and all of that.
So define what you're calling a fiber source.
Maybe like a little tiny bit of pumpkin or psyllium or some sprouts or mushrooms, like a quarter teaspoon, something that's going to feed their microbiome in that respect, not
So I'm gonna
grains
I'm
and
gonna go
not
back to the wild.
rice.
In the
Yes.
wild, they eat the intestinal tract of the animal that they just
Mhm.
killed, and that's where
Yes.
they would have gotten their pre and probiotics.
Mhm.
So, I typically don't add things like pumpkin. I typically don't have to, just making sure that they're getting fermented foods so that they're
Mhm.
helping to support their microbiome. But I am not a fan of putting psyllium into the diet because they wouldn't have had that in the wild. So you're artificially creating fiber and waste that they were not designed. We need that. We need to have more fiber in our diet and our digestive tract, but they don't. So, yes, they have to have good sources of being able to replenish the microbiome, and they would have done that eating some of the cartilage and they would have eaten the intestinal tract and they got some fur in their mouth.
Mhm.
So we do need to model a little bit of where they're going to be getting that from. So um, I it's just some of the things that, like pumpkin is probably not going to be a major problem for them, but
Mhm.
I don't think that I would want them to be on that long term if they don't have to be. So those
Yeah.
are more used if I have an animal that is having a problem with their digestion.
Even
Now
for a
some of
kibble-fed cat, no nothing additional to help support the
well, they
gut?
already have so
Well,
much
they're
in
getting their
kibble.
fermented foods, they're getting their essential vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, and maybe aminos. Are we talking an animal that's been fed processed foods most of its life and now it's shifted to a raw diet? They're going to need more support because you've already whacked on their poor little pancreas so hard. They may need enzymes, they may need other supportive digestive aids in there. And then let's talk about inflammation, because inflammation is where we're really going to have a problem. So most of these animals, they have poor digestion, they're picky eaters, and it's because they have so much inflammation and they have leaky gut. But if we learn how to lower the inflammation and how to heal the leaky gut, now they don't have those same stressors. Are they living in an environment where they can't get into a parasympathetic state? Let me explain. So we have two sides of the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Our sympathetic is the side that helps us run from danger and fight if we're threatened in our life. The
Mhm.
parasympathetic side is the rest, repair, digest, and detoxify. And they're on a teeter totter. So when we're in
Mhm.
balance, we're right here. But when danger happens, your sympathetic side kicks in. It gives you all the extra energy to run or fight. But it was not designed to stay on 24/7. So
Mhm.
it needs to turn off and allow the parasympathetic side to come in, rest, repair, detoxify, and digest.
Mhm.
What happens is these animals are in training to our energy. So when we are in a household where everybody's sleep deprived, you get up early, you get home late, you're yelling at the kids, you have money problems, you have relationship issues, you're eating processed foods yourself, and people aren't healthy and happy, that animal's living in that environment where they're looking at their pet parent and going, wow, they're in high stress. They're ready to flee. There must be danger out there. So I'm going to stay on high alert too. And they get
Mhm.
stuck in that cell danger response mode. So
Mhm.
none of the questions that we've asked are a clear cut answer. There's so many pieces of the lifestyle that we really need to look at,
Mhm.
different than in the allopathic Western model where we say, you have a symptom, here's what you take. Symptom goes away, you think everything is good. In the more bioregulatory approach, which is what I do, I look at the whole picture. I don't look at just the fiber, I don't look at just certain nutrients. I look at the whole picture. What is the lifestyle of the family that animal is living within? What's the water? What's the food? What's the air quality? What's the
Mhm.
movement? What's the, all of these pieces, they're all important.
Mhm.
So a
Well, let me
follow-up on
clarify.
that. Go
Mhm.
ahead, Pam.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm gonna qualify my question about fiber because so many of the raw food diets, like really good commercial, they always include some kind of a fiber source. We're talking tiny amounts in their recipes. So I'm not saying add more because they're already, whether it's whole food sources of greens or mushroom or, name your fiber source, right? But just in general, that's why what I was thinking in terms of raw food, just
Yeah.
because so
So
many recipes already have something in there to support that microbiome.
most of the recipes, we'll talk commercial diets, not homemade recipes. Most of the
Yeah.
commercial diets that are using a lot of vegetables in their diet, they're used as fillers. It sounds good. It's great for marketing. It makes you think, wow, there's all these great vegetables that I would eat in there. So it's very appealing to the human mentality. But that
Mhm.
animal is not designed to eat them. So you're paying meat prices for vegetables. And is it really adding to their health? And I don't have a clinical study to show, but common sense would tell me if they didn't eat it in the wild, then they're probably not going to benefit. Now, if it was all emulsified and broken down and it was fermented and you wanted to put it in, there would probably be some benefit to that because that's how they would have eaten it in the wild. So
Mhm.
I'm a fan of sauerkraut juice. I don't give them the cabbage, I just give them the juice because now you're getting that same kind of a fermented microbiome. And think about in
Mhm.
the wild, every animal that they killed probably had a little bit different microbiome because what they were eating was a little
Mm.
bit different.
Yeah.
We don't have a perfect model for that in our modern society because we just can't exactly create that same lifestyle. So I try to change the fermented foods and use different things. When you look at the people themselves, we eat probably under 10 different foods, types of foods a week. People don't have a lot of variety in their diet. And the animals, they simply went out and ate another animal. The diversity came with what that animal was eating.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, and AFCO and NRC and FEDIAF all think they know better than nature too.
AFCO is the agencies that make the recommendations. They have no legal power. They are
Right.
the big box companies. And the
Mhm.
original intent of these big box companies was to keep the little guy from coming in. So that
Mm.
was really the original intent. Because if they were really trying to make healthier food, they wouldn't allow synthetic vitamins. They wouldn't allow so many of the things that they allow to add into food. They would have
Mhm.
more confirmation that what we're actually putting in that food is actually healthy
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
and nutrient dense
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
I'm
species
curious.
appropriate.
What?
S It's
and species
appropriate.
appropriate. Yes.
Right.
I
Right.
have a question if you have an opinion about
Lots of opinions.
good. The latest in the supplement world for pets has been the addition of fermented soil based pre and probiotics. I don't know if you've come across this yet.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
And I use humic and fulvic products as well.
Okay.
Mm.
So yes, I'm a fan of that because again, you're starting to model what nature had originally intended and we're getting back to the earth. But not all companies are the same. So I work with companies that I really know the integrity and
Mhm.
the philosophy and the intention behind the product. But yes, I do work with those products.
Do you work with human companies as well as pet or just pet?
No, a lot of the companies are human products, and then I made the adapted strategies to make it applicable to animals.
No.
Because sometimes we just don't have that available to us.
And I had one other question about we talked about lifestyle and preparing the body just in giving the body good things. And, we've all done detox and, tried this, that, and the other. Um, and I never say this right, I don't think, but there's something called the Herxheimer response when your body, how do you say it?
Herxheimer, you got it.
Got it. Okay. How I will say that the number of times I've done a detox protocol, the first time I did it, I had a strong response and I literally felt like I had the flu. The next time the next two times were not near what it was the first time. The latest, I didn't have any response. So I feel like I'm, from the anecdotal evidence that I see, I'm getting less toxic, but I want to know, is it safe to assume that our animals would have the same response if we are going through and changing their lifestyle, doing some of these protocols that you've described in our talk with you today, and just cleaning up their lives? Are they going to have the same experience if we start detoxifying the lymphatic system and the liver and all these things?
If it is done inappropriately, yes. So a Herxheimer reaction is a clear indication that you went too hard too fast without being prepared.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so that's not the goal that we're looking for. And it shouldn't be for people or pets. We
Mm-hmm.
want to be more careful to make sure that we're setting them up for success. Now, it's my opinion, and opinions are like an anus. We all have one. Some stink worse than others. So that's my opinion, but it's also 40 years of clinical experience where I've seen where I went too fast and the animal quit eating and didn't feel good. And
Mm-hmm.
if I go back and I slow down and I prepare them better, they don't have any reactions. They
Mhm.
feel great all the way through. Yeah.
I feel like a question, and you've hit on it a couple of different times, but I feel like the question from listeners is going to be, well, how do I prepare them?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it starts with understanding what is your toxic load. So we come back to proper testing, and you should have a pretty good idea if you're going to have a problem. How long have you fed your animal processed food? So even though you may be feeding a raw diet today, what
Yeah.
did they
Mhm.
eat for the first 8 to 10 years of their life? Now, so that all didn't go away. In fact, there's actual studies that show that even heating foods to very high temperatures does not kill aflatoxins.
Mhm.
So they're going to survive. And if the cow or the deer or the animal that was eating the chicken was eating these corn-based diets that are full of mold or mold toxins,
Yeah.
then that mold toxin transfers into the meat, into the milk, and into the eggs.
Mhm.
So you may be thinking you're buying something good, but I mean, just go out to eat. When I go out to eat, I try to be as careful as possible, but I don't have any control over did they use eggs in whatever they cooked
Right.
and were they organic eggs? So there's just a certain level that you can. I don't go out to eat very much, by the way, for that reason. But when
I
I
don't
do
either.
go out, my non negotiables are no gluten and no seed oils. If I can get organic, I will go for it. We live in a world and sometimes you just have to be able to get along in the bubble. And then
Yeah.
you go home and you go back to, but again, this goes back to if your organs of elimination are prepared, they're primed, and you're always going through levels of detox, it's part of your routine, then
Mhm.
you're going to be more resilient when it comes to exposure to toxins. Your body's going to be handling it better because your
Mm.
cup is going to be more empty. When you allow that cup to get full and the next drop spills you over, you don't have the resilience in there to be able to deal with it.
Um, we're already at an hour. So I definitely want to be aware of everybody's time.
One more
I
question.
think this has been an incredible conversation. Lots of great questions and answers. Appreciate you so much. Pam, Janet, do you guys have any other questions that you're like, I really, really need to get this answered today?
I do.
Go for it.
Yeah.
It's the big C word, and how a toxic environment, the body may or may not contribute to cancer. And that may be a big, big
Oh, we
long.
could have a whole hour on that. But, the short answer is the terrain has become so inhospitable that you now have rogue cells that are not being communicated to properly so that they don't know to go die. Apoptosis is the medical term for when it's
Mhm.
programmed cell death. And we make cancer cells every day.
Yeah.
Every day we're making free radicals and we're making cancer cells. So it's not that making them is a problem. It's that the mechanism, the check and balance system that keeps them from growing has gone astray. So now the communication system has failed. The rogue cells don't have anybody telling them what to do. And so, like any of us, if we were cut off from our own military, what would we do? We would try to survive. And that's what they're trying to do.
Mm.
So we go back to our very basics. This is not a pill for the ill, a diet for the disease. There's no amount of chemo that's going to fix this. You have to fix the terrain. You have to fix the lifestyle, which includes the emotional component of what
Mhm.
is this gift that I've been shown, whether it's your pet or yourself. The C word can be a very big blessing if you look at it from the right lens because it's giving you awareness. It's giving you an opportunity to make changes and to think differently.
Mhm.
So, my wrapping comment would be that we all have the same opportunities. We have the same amount of minutes and hours in a day. We have the same ability to make choices about our lifestyle. And at some point, we have to wake up and we have to realize that the power to do anything that we want to do literally is ours. Literally. The power of our mind, the power of our action, the power of our voting with our dollars. That is all within our control. And when we start to take that power back and we start creating the world that we want to live in, if that looks like reducing the amount of plastic, if it means reducing the amount of other toxins that we're exposed to, if it means living more with organic foods and organic supplements, if it's DIY where you're making your cleaners and you're doing a lot of the things that reconnect us to Mother Earth. You may not have a big yard like I only have a third of an acre. It's not a big yard, but it's food everywhere. But start with a pot that you can put in your windowsill. It doesn't have to be huge, major changes to your lifestyle, but you have to make a change. You cannot keep doing the same thing over and
Mhm.
over and expect a different result. Einstein talked about that forever. And he also said you can't solve the problems of the day with the same mindset that created them.
Mhm.
We were sold fast, cheap, and convenient. And we have to realize that that is not in our highest and best interest for ourselves, for our fur babies, or for Mother Earth.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, what can we do differently? Can we go back to touching the ground, growing some food, getting the microbiome on you, eating your vegetables? You don't have to sterilize them when they come from your backyard because you didn't put any sprays on them, right? So, I love going out. I will literally pick beans, open them up, and just eat them right out of the pod. They're just amazing. I'll take fruit or cherries or spinach, and I'll just munch while I'm just going through the garden. And people look at me and they go, "Oh my God, you didn't wash that." I go, "Well, yeah, I didn't spray anything on it." So, but what do you think you're washing off? There's a beautiful microbiome on there. When we make cabbage, when we make sauerkraut, what do? We use the bacteria on this organically grown sauerkraut. We don't put
Uh,
it in ozone water to sterilize it first. It wouldn't grow sauerkraut.
right.
So we have to
Mm.
go back to a lifestyle and a mindset that allows us to reconnect with our soul, with the soul of Mother Earth, and make better choices. It's not hard. It is not hard at all. In fact, it is so much more rewarding. When you start to do it, your life just improves. But turn off the television, turn off the games, and use
Mhm.
that time to
Yeah.
start reconnecting back with you, your soul, your family, and Mother Earth.
Amen.
Mhm.
I think that's an excellent place to end. That was beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Siegel, you did mention earlier a couple of websites people could go. You have the pet parent courses, a number of courses that you spoke about. And I know you also have I want to say this right, is I keep in my mind, I'm like evolve, but it's Evo Love.
Yeah, it's love backwards and forwards. I
Oh, that's so
at it. It's love every way you look at.
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And you have a growing line of all natural, no synthetic products that I mean, I'm on your mailing list, so I get to see every time like something comes up and something new is added and I'm like, "Oh, that's so beautiful. I love it."
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
get
the
on.
Mhm.
easiest way to access everything is through drmarlenesiegel.com. And
Okay.
then that's the hub of everything. And then you can just click on the icon that you want to go to. That's the
Mhm.
easiest.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Well, I'll make sure that that link is in the show notes so people, wherever you're listening, whatever podcast app you're listening on, you can just click it in the show notes and go straight there. Thank you so very much for this
So
talk today,
much.
Dr. Siegel. I know you have so much incredible wisdom that I know you want to pass on to the next generation. And hopefully we get to talk to you some more. But for today, I just want to tell you how much we appreciate you. Thank you for this chat.
Mhm.
And guys, go check out Dr. Marlene Siegel's website, get on her mailing list, and check out all of the incredible products she has.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you guys. And
Absolutely.
thank you for all the hard work because I would not have a voice if it wasn't for you guys putting the effort into making a platform for us to be able to share. So thank you because we don't do this in solidarity. We do it as a community. And as a
Mhm.
community, we lock elbows and join shoulders and we carry that weight to help other people. Call it like the torch. We're lighting the path so that people can
Mhm.
actually see where they need to go. So
Yep.
thank you for all the work that you guys do.
Yeah.
Much gratitude.
Oh,
Thank
Thank you.
you.
thank you. Guys, please give your pets some extra love from all of us, including Dr. Siegel today, and we will talk to you next time.
Sounds good.
Bye.